I got a massive record collection. I'm estimating I have at least 3,000 LPs and about 5,000 45s. A lot of them are very rare.
Good evening, and welcome back to the Literary Talk Show. My name is Chad Stanley. It's my privilege right now to introduce a rock and roll mercenary. Please welcome the one and only Marky Ray. That's a hell of a band.
Oh, thanks.
Marky, you're a rock and roll professional. What do you think of our band?
I think they're a top crack unit there, Dave. I love them. They're great. Knocking me out.
Marky Ray. Boy, you've been involved in a lot of different things over the years. For the folks that are not aware of just who you are, you've been a local Cleveland musician throughout the 80s and currently in the 90s as well. You've also gone on the road with several big-time acts as a roadie, as a tour manager.
As a performer and player.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah, and you're acutely aware of the business and the inner workings of it and everything. So you have quite a tale to tell. I don't know where to start, frankly. I really don't know. Let's go back. Let's go back to your childhood.
Way back.
No, let's go back to the 80s. You were, well, actually, you were with bands in the Kent area.
Yeah.
We could start even back then.
I started playing professionally in 1982 with Johnny Clampett and the Walkers.
Yeah.
An old rockabilly bar band.
Do they still get together, by the way?
They do reunion shows. They all live in different places now. I think Mikey Hammer lives in Atlanta, and Johnny Teagle lives in New York, and Bob Bassong lives in New York, and Mike Perkheiser still lives in Akron. But yeah, they get together once in a while.
Okay, cool. So you were one of the, well, you were not in the first incarnation of Terrible Parade, but
no,
you were,
I joined when they became a quartet when I joined. They were a three-piece when I joined.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were there during the salad years.
Yes, the
Always
pop
wanted to
shop
say
and
that.
the old days,
and of course you had your own outfit entitled Death on a Stick.
Yes,
now, Terrible Parade, as I remember it, would you call it a kind of like a darker REM type of sound back in there?
Well, yeah, we were actually contemporaries with REM way back when, and of course we didn't have a record deal, or anything to speak of, but we paid our dues in the Cleveland scene and went elsewhere and looked for greener pastures, but we unfortunately didn't find any, so we moved on to other things. I moved on to Death on a Stick and other local things. And
Death on a Stick. Now, those of you out there, listen up. Those of you that are big fans of industrial music, love it! You are looking at the industrial godfather seated here.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I am laying it on like peanut butter, but tell me a little bit something about Death on a Stick.
Well, we sort of started out as like a bunch of WRUW, God bless them, DJs at the time, and I joined the group and everybody quit because I was the most serious one, and we sort of evolved into other projects, and at one time a 4-piece, then a 3-piece, which was our final incarnation. We had like 3 incarnations from about 1985 through 1988, and we reformed again for a reunion show in like 91 or something like that. Right. But we were sort of a colorful band, I'd like to say. I called it industrial jazz. So it was. We used to go up and play in New York City and CBGBs and all that, and we were actually quite respected up there. But you'd come back to Cleveland and we get decent press and stuff, but we wouldn't really have any. There was no. We put on our own theatrical performances and stuff because we'd found that it was hard to get into venues at the time.
Got to pay the blues if you want to. Got to pay your dues if you want to
play the blues.
Play the blues.
Something like that.
And you know it don't come easy.
That's right. If it can be so cliche right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So after that, I really became a mercenary in about 1988. I went out and a friend of mine from New York City called me up and said, "Hey, there's this Boston band called the Liars," and spelled Lyres, the Liars, Lears.
The Liars, kind of a retro pop garage.
Yes, like a 60s garage band, and they were based out of Boston. And this was 2 weeks after I graduated from Cleveland State, and I called them up and said, "I heard you're looking for a bass player." And they said, "Yeah, fly on up." So I flew on up and joined them, and went from like relative obscurity in the Midwest to playing in Boston. And
you could probably talk about those guys for the rest of the evening.
It was 4 guys.
Volatile situation.
4 guys in a van for 4 months around the U.S. and Canada. It was quite a tour, and I really became a mercenary then, sort of a hired gun, if you will.
So Marky, that's just like, what the hell is that? Frying bacon. It's nice, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right, so
Hot pipe
at that
and
point,
bacon.
you were just like everybody else. I mean, you were your garden variety, Cleveland Heights strummer, jammer. Hey, what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah.
Going to the pop shop.
Yeah.
You come along. You
Yeah.
know, that type of thing.
Certainly.
But then you took it on to another level, man. I mean, you ended up hooking up with 9 Inch Nails, and basically with them and then with other people, you ended up seeing the world.
Yeah. I started for them. A friend of mine, Mark O'Shea, who still tours around, still lives in Cleveland, hooked me up with them. They needed a technician, basically a guitar tech, and I'd been teching since as long as I've been playing. I used to work for a lot of Cleveland and New York City bands in the early '80s, in '81, '82 in New York City, and that whole time I was working in Cleveland doing stage handing and working for Belkin and stuff like that. So I ended up.
This isn't very sexy what you're telling us here. Tell me the part about the groupies and the drug taking.
Long-winded. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I ended up just becoming their technician and.
Don't worry, we'll edit out.
And,
We'll edit out any of the names.
Well, I ended up just touring with them, and one day Trent said, "Hey, you want to play some guitar on this song?" And I said, "Okay." So started playing with them, and it ended up we ended up traveling all over the planet doing that.
On stage.
Wembley
Stadium.
Played Wembley Stadium.
80,000 screaming London maniacs.
Madison Square Garden too. That was probably a second memorable. So Wembley was probably the most memorable.
What's the breakdown? I mean, so you get on the inside and you're a guitar technician.
Yeah.
Fine.
But I ended up moving up from there into like
tour.
production manager, and then finally I became a tour manager, tour accountant, you name it, everything guy. Now I'm a consultant, basically. People call me up and say, "How do you do this? And how do you do this? And how do you do this?"
You make more money now than you ever have before.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I make a lot of money on the road, and come home, and you got to get people to pay you. People love to call you up and pick your brain for stuff, but when you actually sit them down and say, "Hey, I'll pay me something, and I'll tell you this."
Give us a breakdown. Who have you worked with?
Long list, short list. Let's see.
Short list.
Well, local bands, I'd have to say. Let me just give you a quick synopsis of that. Let's see. Walking Clampets, Terrible Parade, Death on a Stick, Death of Samantha, and the New Salem Witch Hunters on a local level.
Musically.
Those were all musicals. Yeah, those were all playing. Both a technician and a player with 9 Inch Nails, Ministry, Die Warsaw, Butthole Surfers. I was a member of the Jim Rose Circus as a performer, both a stunt performer and a player, tour manager as well.
Of all of them, must have been the most bizarre.
Oh, it was, because it was a little bit vaudeville, a little bit theater, a little bit rock and roll. Exactly, yeah. But it really was. It was very interesting, and you meet all sorts of colorful people. And we played festivals all over the world. Like, we'd go to Australia and play down there for a month all over Australia, and we'd go to Edinburgh Fringe Festival, one of the most prestigious festivals in the world, and play there for a month. And we were like the top draw and all over the place. And we'd meet people like Penn and Teller would come to the shows, or famous rock stars and TV stars, and it was wonderful. It was a great eye-opening experience. And
from the inside like that, hey, you're earning good money.
Oh yeah,
you're touring around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a totally different perspective than the guy playing the music, trying to get the record deal.
Well, you learn the business along the way, which is great.
The two? In that, what does Joe Guitar, sitting out in his Bay Village basement right now, what does he have to do to get off his ass and start making it happen?
Well, that's a long story. I mean, it's funny.
Know him?
Well, it's funny because so many people call me up and ask me, how do I do that? And I have to sit them down and say, well, first of all, you have to record, you have to write songs, and you have to record them, and you have to put out some sort of product. Everybody hates that fucking word. Excuse me, that word.
Where he cracks jokes and uses obscenities and that
word. But I feel the same way. But you have to get it out so people can see it and get it distributed in some capacity. And you have to work it. You can't just sit at home and let the record sell itself. You have to go out and you tour if you can, or if you get to a certain level where you actually, the A&R guys at major labels will always tell you, well, stay in your hometown, build a scene there, and we'll come see you. And I don't really believe that. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of truth to that if you're a big buzz band.
Look at this band. As good as they are.
I'm calling all my agents tomorrow to get these guys signed.
But their problem is, as you state, they don't have a CD out yet.
Well, yeah, you have to have something. You can do all the open mic nights you want or whatever, but I mean, you got to have something to promote, whether it be yourself or a band or whatever.
Okay, quick. I mean, put me on the spot. I mean, a wacky story or two. Life on the road.
Okay,
you were telling me before you don't want to I mean, you've got some people involved in picadillos that you don't want to share because...
I'll tell you a good Jim Rose circus story, and you can edit out the nasty parts. This is a request of my friend Rick. I was in Scandinavia with Jim Rose. This was before I joined the circus. This was the last. This was the last incarnation of the original Jim Rose circus. We were in Scandinavia in Gothenburg, Sweden, and we were playing a small 200-seat club that had 400 people in it. And Jim Rose is on stage. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the circus, but they had Matt the Tube Crowley, who used to do what was called the gavage act. And what that is they take a gavage, which is a stomach pump, and they pour all this beer and Maalox and ketchup, and they'd play it up, Oh, he must be an American. He loves ketchup, and they'd pour it in there. Jim Rose doing this whole spiel. Well, what they do is they pour this down into the stomach, and then they pull it back up, and they give it to the audience to drink. It's called bio beer. And this is it's a freak show, basically, and it's a weird sort of freak circus. And there are real Vikings in the world. People think, bullshit, Leif Erikson or whatever.
Right.
There was these huge Nordic Vikings in the audience. And when Jim went to feed the beer to the crowd, he said, "Can we have a couple of volunteers?" Now, everyone is sitting down because you couldn't see anything. You were sort of looking over, over various people to see what was going on. So there were some people sitting in the front. Well, these huge, they call them crusties in Europe, these enormous Nordic guys who had like barbed wire wrapped around them and excrement in their hair, huge dreadlocked hair, and they get up on stage and sort of swipe these glasses of bio beer out of Jim and Matt the Tube's hands. And Jim's wife, Bibi, who was handing out stuff, and Mr. Lifto was up there too. These are circus characters.
Right.
Anyways, in slow motion, this sort of takes place. I'm running sound from the front of the house. I'm running lights and sound and doing monitors all from the front of the house. I'm in this sort of little plexiglass enclosed booth. And all of a sudden, they grab the bio beer, and these two guys, it's sort of like, oh no, I'm sort of watching this happen in slow motion. These guys pull down their pants and urinate into the bio beer and each other's bio beer.
That's disgusting.
It is disgusting. And then they drank it, and then they sprayed the audience with the rest of it, and then they dove out into the crowd and cleared the crowd. And these are huge Europeans, and a fight broke out, needless to say, and I'm ducking beer bottles and shit flying everywhere. So needless to say, it was a wonderful time was had by all. So.
He's real hilarious, even though he does use a lot of obscene words.
By all. So
that was a great story.
Yeah, that was just one of many, but
I was just like another day at the gig, right? Another day.
Oh
at the
yeah,
job.
that happened every day.
Okay, Marky, I understand that you brought a video over to show us some of the stuff that you've been working on.
Yeah.
I mean, is this like Jim Rose stuff that you've done, or some independent video?
To the best of my knowledge, there's, if I can remember on the tape, there's some Jim Rose stuff, some various band footage from various venues and TV stuff that I've done.
Cool.
To the best of my knowledge.
Okay, let's roll this video. Peso fortissimo, non troppo.
hell? That wasn't my video clip.
That was great, man.
I don't know.
That was you up there.
Are you sure about
I
that?
swear to God it was.
Oh, I didn't think that was my video clip.
Well, it was great anyway.
Okay.
He's funny.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marky Ray, rock and roll mercenary. Short break. We are the Literary Talk Show. Baby.
Rock and roll is the quintessential American artistic experience.
Toby Radloff, genuine nerd, outside Cleveland Municipal Stadium. Sure, it's cold and freezing out here right now, but I can't wait for the weather to get warm when I could be sitting in the stands with an ice-cold Coke and a bag of peanuts in my hand, watching the Indians score home run after home run and running the bases. Sure, the Indians have been in last place over the years, but win or lose, I love my tribe. The tribe, woo! This is my team.
My next guest is a star of multimedia. Please welcome the one and only Toby Radloff to the stage. Wow. You know, as an aside, the band is exceptionally tight tonight.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd mention that. Toby, I got to know you from your stint on MTV back in the 80s.
Yes.
You have a character. Tell us about the character, the persona that you do.
I called myself the genuine nerd because when I was back in high school, I was picked on a lot. I was harassed a lot. And I considered myself a nerd because I was different. My ideas were perceived as different. And after seeing the first Revenge of the Nerds movie about 40-something odd times, I decided to portray myself as the genuine nerd on MTV. I have a friend of mine named Harvey Picar. He works full-time at the Veterans Administration Hospital at Wade Park. He puts out a comic book called American Splendor, and he's been doing American Splendor for over 20 years now.
We are familiar. Those
Yeah.
of us, a round of applause for those that are familiar with American Splendor. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he's been doing these comic books for about 20 years.
So you're in the comic strip?
I'm in the comic books.
Wow.
I've been there since issue number 9.
Wow.
And issue number 10 is when I talk about being a nerd, how I drove to Toledo 200 miles to see Revenge of the Nerds for the first time.
Wow.
Because I wanted to see the movie. I saw it reviewed in USA Today. I wanted to see it, but it didn't open in Cleveland area theaters yet.
Yeah.
But since I read in the Toledo Blade it was playing there, I drove up there to see it the first time.
Exactly. We're not on the, we're not on the first wave. Usually it takes about a couple of weeks
Yeah,
at least
sometimes
until we get the
movies
films.
open in Cleveland a few weeks or a few months after they open other places.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to touch on the MTV thing in a bit.
Yes, okay.
But first of all, again, the whole essence of nerd. I mean, nerds have been portrayed a variety of different characters on television shows. The first, a very popular nerd that comes to mind is like Latka Gravis, Andy
From
Kaufman's
Taxi,
character
yeah.
from Taxi.
Taxi, yeah.
Right. And when he played that character, at least the way he would do it, he was in that persona, in that personality 24 hours a day,
Yes.
many times, weeks at a time in doing that. It was something, in other words, it came naturally to him.
Yeah, he was
And-
one who was perceived as different there
Exactly.
at that show.
Now, I just wanted, if you were to define the word nerd, what is a nerd?
A nerd is somebody who is not really believed by the general public, who might maybe even harassed or picked on by the general public, but who is very intellectual and pretty much knows what he's doing. Nerds can be of all walks of life. They're young nerds, they're old nerds, they're black nerds, white nerds, Hispanic nerds, gay nerds, straight nerds, female nerds, elderly nerds.
Isn't it fair to say that there's probably a little bit of nerdism in everyone? It's just a matter of how you keep it hidden, or whether you wear it like a badge of honor.
Yeah, it could be, you could wear it like as a badge of honor, because even the person who is like the big man on campus, or the person who is very successful in business or in acting,
Right.
or even the president of the United States, there could be a little nerd in him.
Right. And it's, in essence, I mean, it's a matter of, do you want to put up a front and appear cool, or do you just want to relax and be yourself and allow yourself to be a nerd?
Yeah, being a nerd is basically being yourself. You don't have to conform your behavior to suit others.
And there's a freedom involved in that.
Yes.
It's liberating.
Yes.
All right. Now, let's take your classic garden variety nerd, okay?
Yes.
Bespectacled fellow, spends a lot of time indoors, doesn't want to play football. I mean, I'm just vamping. Sits in the house all day, plays the violin, I don't know.
Yeah.
And works on the computer, to use a more 90s example.
Yeah.
Is that the type of thing where he's just naturally born that way? Or
guess-
does his environment influence his development?
I think sometimes it could be both, because he's trying to work. A nerd can try to work his way up, and he does it by practicing his intellect. I know a couple of people. They would always have a pen and paper in their hand, and whenever something comes to mind, they would jot it down on paper. While others, they would put it on the internet, they would put it in the computer. They would keep it in their mind for a long time. Some of my friends are into computers.
Well, some of us try to keep it in our minds, and if we don't write it down, we totally forget it.
But I mean, this one friend of mine, he would write things on little pieces of paper, whether it be bank ATM receipts or little notebooks, or even...
You consider that nerdism?
Yeah, even off of a napkin he picks up from McDonald's or something like that. He would write it. If something comes to his mind, he'd jot it down on paper immediately. And I know two different people that do such a thing.
Okay, now, the only reason why I got to know you
Yeah.
was because I remember you in MTV back
Yes.
in the 80s. Now, how did you achieve that? How did you achieve that persona as the nerd on MTV? How did it happen?
What happened was MTV sent a camera crew to the VA hospital back in '87 to do something on Harvey Picar, because at that time Harvey had appeared a couple times on David Letterman's show, and MTV News wanted to do something about his comic books, and Harvey bases some of his stories on people he works with at the VA, including me.
So you got some payoff from that, in other
Yes.
words. Oh,
And
very good.
MTV's discovered a talent.
Oh.
And I had appeared at least a dozen times between '87 and '91.
Okay, and we've got a clip of you doing the MTV.
Yeah, there's
In the
that
appearance.
tape I provided to you. It has clips from MTV plus a clip from PM Magazine from Channel 8 several years back.
Excellent, excellent. Let's roll that tape right now. This is Toby Radloff, the nerd.
Radloff.
Radloff, sorry.
Used too much around here, though. That's
Right.
like more or less of a movie term or something. Maybe
Yeah.
they use that in Los Angeles or
Something like that, yeah.
I don't know if that's a Cleveland word.
It's a common slang for beer brewski.
Oh, all right. I just
Yeah.
don't hear it too much myself.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not living in the right neighborhood or something.
Yeah.
I don't hear it. Right.
Yeah, hi, this is Toby Radloff, genuine nerd from Cleveland, Ohio. And and I want to talk about the subject of love. As some of you might know, I do not have a girlfriend, and there's no woman in my life yet. But what I'm looking for, since I'm a nerd, is a nerdy girlfriend. Hopefully this will have a nerdy romance. It'll lead to a nerdy marriage. I would play Dr. Demento and other type of novelty records at the nerdy ceremony. We would have one nerdy child, and we'd raise the child to be a nerd as well. Sure, some of you yuppies may feel offended that I wear polyester, but to me, polyester feels comfortable. Calculators on their belt, they'd wear flood pants, they'd wear white socks, and they'd wear hush puppy shoes. That pretty much fits the stereotype of a nerd. And to me, after eating different types of burgers, this has got to be the climax. Hamburgers are a safer addiction than drugs. Say no to drugs. Say yes to White Castle.
People Harvey works with, including Toby Radloff, whose obsessions are White Castle hamburgers and being a nerd.
After seeing the original Revenge of the Nerds movie about 35 times, it was from there that I decided to become a nerd, and I even show it with this button.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Toby, I want to thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah.
The one and only original nerd.
Yeah.
Toby Radloff, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
You're a hard man.
Wow. Where did the show go? Where did the show go? We had some incredible guests. I'm not even going to go through them all right now, because that would just be wasting time. You've watched it, you've dug it, so there's more coming. If you enjoyed it, give... Oh.
He's real hilarious, even though he does use a lot of obscene words.
Wow, what can I say other than we'll be back again. Keep your eyes open, and you never know when you might see the Literary Talk Show once again on your local cable access show. Until next time, ciao, bye-bye.
When you think about it, when you think about it, when you think about it, when you think about it,
It's a nerdy girlfriend, hopefully. We'll have a nerdy romance. It'll lead to a nerdy marriage. I would play...
I wonder who was in my room that night. Who the hell was in my bed? No!
Have one nerdy child, and we'd raise the child to be a nerd as well.
Go ahead and call us at 221-4066.